Hello there. Welcome in to a Tuesday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, or you're streaming this show on either one of those two fine radio stations streaming platforms. Those apps are free to download and they're free to use. And they're both sponsored by Diversus Health. Mental health and well-being for all. It will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics on the show today, and I would love to get your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Producer extraordinaire Ray Dominguez standing by, eagerly awaiting your correspondence. I think that perspective is important, especially when it comes to sports, because the teams we follow, whether it's because you're a fan, whether it's because you cover them, whatever the case may be, you can get very in the weeds, right? And you could tend to maybe worry about things that don't really need to be worried about in the grand scheme of things, right? If something happens last night, we're going to talk about it the next day, and we're going to talk about what it means. But now that we're getting towards the end of the regular season in both the NHL and the NBA, I think it's important that we start to zoom out a little bit. Okay? Nothing's radically going to change between now and the end of the season. Maybe where the Avalanche and the Nuggets are seated, but in terms of who they are, even if these two teams have changed a little bit, especially with the Avs on the power play lately, there's not going to be a big shift in the next 3 games or 6 games or whatever it might be. Avs have more games left than the Nuggets. Here's why I say this. How did you feel about last night's Nuggets overtime win? Now, I'm going to make an assumption, and you can tell me that I'm wrong at 719-247-1313. But I'm going to make an assumption that last night, as entertaining as it was, and as fun as maybe the ending was, through most of the game, you felt like, why are we even here? Because I will tell you, that's how I felt. And I will tell you, that's how my producer felt, because he texted me about it last night. The feeling, if you ride the roller coaster with the Nuggets and you're locked in every single night, you will look at last game, which is do you notice a difference between last night and Saturday? I mean, whether they down 18 last night, down 19 or whatever it was against the Spurs, like it's again another furious Nuggets comeback to force overtime and then eventually pull through. Such a result may be somewhat acceptable when it comes to the San Antonio Spurs. It's not as acceptable with the standards that you have for this basketball team for that to happen against the Portland Trailblazers. And what makes it, I think, if I can say disappointing win, is what David Adelman said right before the game started at his pregame press conference. He said the following, quote, I think more importantly, we talk about this a lot. What happened last night around the NBA? That should make you ready for tonight. Watching Houston find a way to win that game last night, they're right behind us. What Charlotte did in Minnesota, what the Lakers are going through, to me, that should provide enough motivation to continue to be professional about each and every game, and Portland plays hard as hell. And then after David Adelman said that, the Nuggets found themselves down by nearly 20. So with us, the team didn't heed the words of David Adelman. Is David Adelman, his message not getting through? Are the Nuggets not being professional about it? Because you can talk about the 3-point shooting of Portland, and I've discussed this. Teams without fail will come out guns blazing against the Denver Nuggets. It's probably, in most of the reason, is because the Nuggets are one of the best teams in the league. It's easy for opponents to get up for a game against the Denver Nuggets. It's not as easy for the Denver Nuggets to get up for a game against Portland. And I grant them that. But your coach had it at the top of his mind to say it in a press conference, probably said it to you in a locker room, and then you proceed to fall down by nearly 20 points. That's not good. But I think, and maybe it's a pessimism and optimism thing. I'm kind of, a lot of my family is from New York. I would say I was raised in a family whose fandom very much presented itself in a negative way. The word bum was used a lot in my life growing up when I'm around my father or my uncles or my grandfather. That guy's a bum. He's a bum. They're all bums. So maybe it's just the way I'm conditioned. But I would look at last night, and as entertaining as that game ended up being, and as glad as a Nuggets fan as you are that they won, because the third seed is still very much within reach, and now you have a full game lead on LA with them having 4 games and you having 3 games left. I think sometimes it's good to kind of turn the mirror around a little bit. Because I don't think that the general consensus out there, outside of the Nuggets fan base, outside of Colorado, is maybe as negative with this Denver Nuggets team, even with last night's performance. I think I look at the fact that David Adelman talked about being professional and the energy level being up, and then they come out and the energy level is not up, as a negative. That's kind of why did you have to have this furious rally to force overtime and to beat Portland? It's Portland. On your home floor, you should just, and I'm not saying you got to win by 30, but you should control that game. And the Nuggets didn't. That's the way I look at a game like that. I think a perspective from the outside, whether it be in Oklahoma City or San Antonio or Minnesota or Houston, are like, holy cow, back-to-back games now, the Denver Nuggets have come back from nearly 20 down to win games. I think they focus on what the Nuggets are putting on display when they're rallying from 18 or 19 points down. The fact that and it started with Jamal Murray, when they were down 18 and they got down to 10, that was all Jamal Murray. Hit a three-pointer, hit a jumper, block shot, strip, assist to Jokic on a dunk, and the Nuggets are down 10. I think teams that are looking at who they're going to play and the fact that the Nuggets may be one of them are looking at that and going, we don't want to play this team. I think the Denver Nuggets, even with their struggles, are the team in the West that no one wants to play. Now, OKC is OKC. They are the final boss in the Western Conference. But in a weird way, everyone wants to play them because that means they're getting to a title potentially, right? Because the road to the NBA Finals goes through Oklahoma City. So in a weird way, they do. Everyone wants to play OKC. I don't think anyone wants to play Denver. I think if you look at Minnesota and Houston what they're doing right now. I know Minnesota has some recent success in the playoffs against Denver. So there may be some part of the Timberwolves that are like, yeah, we could take this team. But I don't know it's the majority. I know for a fact I know Houston doesn't want to play Denver. I don't think San Antonio wants to play Denver. And I think not that OKC isn't confident against any team, because they are and they should be. If they had their druthers, do you think they're saying, let's draw the Nuggets again? Maybe even more so than San Antonio. I think they look, I legitimately believe this, that OKC would rather play San Antonio than play Denver. I think that the Nuggets are that proverbial team that no one wants to play, which I think is important. And I'm not saying this to say, oh, you suddenly the issues with the Denver Nuggets you have to overlook. But I think it's a way to kind of, cut down on the number of things. And I'll bring up one example. Do you think at this point that playing or not playing Jonas Valanciunas is going to be the difference between the Denver Nuggets winning a title or not? We talk about it because it's noteworthy that a guy that we thought was kind of the key to all of this, the Michael Porter trade and the moves that they made, is not playing regularly. He's played the last couple of games, and he's looked very good. So for us, maybe Jonas Valanciunas' playing time is worthwhile. I don't know that anybody's handicapping a series between San Antonio and Denver or OKC and Denver and saying Jonas Valanciunas, whether he plays or not, that's where I'm going. So I think with 3 games left before the end of the regular season, and if OKC and San Antonio and Denver, for that matter, are still pushing, right, and still putting out their best lineups for the last 2 games of the season, OKC and Denver on Friday, San Antonio and Denver on Sunday. Let's just say they're full strength. Then it will be a chance to kind of test my theory here. I think whether Jonas Valanciunas plays or doesn't play is not that big of a deal. I do think that the defense that Denver plays is important, but what they've done over these last 8 games in which they have all won is they've been very good in crunch time defensively, which was the hallmark of Michael Malone's championship team. The team that Michael Malone won with, they weren't a great defensive team, but man, they could buckle down when it mattered. Look at Wemby at the end of regulation and what Aaron Gordon did on him. They waited even longer last night against Portland to start their comeback than they did against San Antonio, and their defense was good down the stretch. And I talked about post All-Star break. This is a vastly improved defensive team. I still don't think it's ultimately enough to win them a title, but it just goes to my point that the signs that are being shown by the Nuggets over the last 8 games, people nationally are noticing, and they're starting to talk about, well, this looks a lot like the team that won a title. Overpowering offense that is almost like, how do you even stop them? That Jokic Murray 2-man game, Aaron Gordon, what he can do, the way that Cam Johnson has figured out his role. I think they look at the Nuggets offensively and saying, we really don't want to face that offense. And now they're seeing a defense, and many of them, are reading the box score. They're seeing the final score. Or maybe they're watching the end of the game and seeing the Nuggets lock down Portland and lock down San Antonio in these last 2 games to be able to force overtime. Doesn't have to change your entire perspective regarding this team, because it's not changing mine. I can't sit here today and say that I think that I would take Denver in a 7-game series over OKC. But I think one thing that I do believe with this Nuggets team as well is I think they are the last team Oklahoma City wants to face at some point. I don't think San Antonio. Well, I think they're hoping that the Lakers get the 3rd seed. How could you not? If you're San Antonio, how could you not want Lakers round 2 instead of the Nuggets? And I think if you're Houston or Minnesota, you'd want the Lakers to fall. Or to just avoid the Denver Nuggets. I think that the Denver Nuggets right now doesn't mean they're winning the whole thing, but I think they're every team in the West right now with the way that they're playing, with starts of games, not ignoring what David Adelman is saying pregame or not, they're looking at it and like, yeah, we'd probably rather not play that team. I think that's what the Denver Nuggets have become. And I think Boston is that team on the other side. Let somebody else do that. Let somebody else do that dirty work. I mean, we're doing the same thing, right? We're saying, I'd rather not maybe play Minnesota. Much rather have San Antonio round 2 than OKC. Everybody does it. I just think that there might be a consensus out there that if you are a team that's in a position to avoid the Denver Nuggets as long as possible, you would rather do that. 8 games in a row now. Not every one of them has been a sterling performance, but they get the job done again. 8 in a row after an overtime win against the Blazers. I'll take your thoughts on that. 719-247-1313. Just getting going. Drive Time Sports, 740 KVOR and Extra Sports, 1300. Avalanche fans, don't forget your tickets to see the Avs at Ball Arena for the 2026 Stanley Cup playoffs presented by Toyota. The energy is electric. The goals are better and the stakes are higher. Visit coloradoavalanche.com/playoffs. Now, I have started to figure out what this Rockies team is going to be this year. And it's not special. Okay, so I'm not getting too carried away here. But I think they legitimately have a chance compared to the rock bottom they were at last year, no pun intended, to be one of the most improved teams in the league. I think that's realistic. Again, there are certain parameters on it. I'm not saying this team is a playoff team. I'm not saying they're even going to be in playoff contention down the stretch of the season. But look at where they were last year. In fact, Ray, do me a favor. Look up how many wins the Rockies had through the first week of last season. I believe they're already ahead of the pace. But you just watch this team, and they're more competitive. Every once in a while, that Rockies team of last year, which was what we got, how they do through the first week of the season.
Through the first week of the 2025 MLB season, approximately through April 5th, the Colorado Rockies had 2 wins.
They have doubled that. They have doubled that after last night. They took 2 games in Toronto. They took the finale of the series against the Philadelphia Phillies, and they won last night over the Houston Astros. And one, but that team that existed last year, they're still going to pop up. I know Michael Lorenzen wasn't a part of that team last year, but like you're going to be reminded at times just how bad the Rockies were a year ago. And even though it was Michael Lorenzen on the hill opening day against the Philadelphia Phillies, a starter giving up 7 runs in the opening frame, that feels like last year's Rockies team. So you're going to be reminded of just how bad the Rockies were last year. Because a lot of those same guys still exist on this team. And they are not even close to one of the most talented teams. They are devoid of talent. They really are. But they are a plucky bunch. And Warren Schaefer has this team playing hard. They're aggressive. And they're just trying to do whatever they can to win games, knowing full well that they are at a talent disadvantage every single night they step onto the field. When I talk about the Rockies being one of the most improved teams this year in Major League Baseball, I'm not talking necessarily in the talent. I'm just strictly talking about results. Right? The results, I think, this year and the competitiveness of this team, I think, is going to be a lot better than it was a year ago. What does that get them anywhere close to the postseason? No. No. But does it make this team worth checking out every once in a while? Maybe. And one guy that I've heard him interviewed a couple of times after games, and I think he kind of embodies what I'm talking about. Troy Johnston, one of the heroes from last night's win, spoke after the game to the motivation with this Rockies team.
So coming from the Miami Marlins, when I walk around Miami, I never saw a Miami Marlins jersey. I never saw a Miami Marlins hat. I saw nothing of the sort. When I'm walking around downtown Denver, they are really excited about the Rockies. They want the Rockies to be good. This is a sports town. We are trying to put a good product on the field. I think Paul's done a great job of that. I've never seen so many supporters of one team that I've actually been a part of and that I've been on. So this city and this team wants to win, and we're going to try to put the best product every night and do our best to win.
Two things there. We want to win. The first time I ever heard Troy Johnston speak was in Toronto. And he said the mantra of this team is we want to win. And it seems like kind of lame for all the puns you could come up with. I mean, we do live in the land of Rocktober, right? You can't think of a cool pun. We want to win. But at the same time, haven't you doubted that this organization wants to win? At times? Do they really want to win? Because they're doing a really bad job of it if they are wanting to win. I think they have wanted to win. But you got to do something. And I think that's been the entire Rockies experience over, let's just face it, most of their existence. The desire to win is there. The means to do it is not. So in comes Warren Schaefer, who basically says, you put one of us on base because it may be the only guy we got on base for this inning or the next 5 innings. We don't know how many guys are going to be able to get on base. But if we get a guy on, that dude is running around the bases. On a base hit, we're trying to take third. We're probably going to call a steal for that guy. Pop fly to the outfield, we're going to try and tag up and score. This team is ultra aggressive, sometimes to their detriment. There have been some really bad decisions by the Colorado Rockies in terms of their aggressiveness on the base paths. But at least they're doing something. Right? It just felt like this team for so long had that mantra of we want to win, but they didn't know how to do it. And Warren Schaefer has brought in this mentality and this reckless abandon to where that's how we're going to do it. We're not going to be successful all the time doing it, but we have found a way that maybe we can bridge the gap on a nightly basis between a team that 1 through 9 is far superior to us. We're not going to be conservative on the base pass. Under Bud Black, it was very station to station. Let's get a couple runners on. With Warren Schaefer, it's sacrificing, it's first to third, it's stealing bases. And that's why I said at the beginning of the season, I just want to see that they have ideas on how to be better. There have been ideas. It hasn't led to the Rockies being the story of Major League Baseball or being in a great position sitting at the top of the division or anything like that. But watching it, it is different than watching Rockies baseball this time last year. And it's more entertaining. And look, we are a state with some really high standards. We have 3 teams right now in the other 3 major sports that are all on the cusp of winning championships. Right? Broncos were one win away from the Super Bowl. Nuggets have won a title and are on the short list of teams that could potentially win a title this year. Colorado Avalanche are going to get win the President's Trophy as the best team wire to wire in the NHL this year. Our standards are very high. So if that's what compels you to watch sports, then the Rockies aren't your team. And that's totally fine. And if you want to check back in when they are in contention for something, I'll let you know when that's going to be. It's not anytime soon. But if you are just looking to like Troy Johnston's point, there are people in this state that really want the Rockies to do well and really want a reason to watch them. And it doesn't have to be because they're battling the Dodgers for an NL West title. It's just that it's not soul crushing to watch this team play baseball. Last year, it was soul crushing. You couldn't take it. You couldn't watch games 2 consecutive days. You couldn't muster up the energy because it was just going to be the worst baseball you've ever seen. This isn't the worst baseball I've ever seen. It's not particularly great baseball, but it's not the worst I've ever seen. And knowing that if the Rockies do happen by pure dumb luck or happenstance, get a guy on base, you could bet that dude is running. That dude's trying to steal second. That guy's going to try and go first to third on a ball through the infield. That's something that might be worth watching for some fraction of 162. Maybe not all 162. And we're about to get, like, every night, if the NHL and NBA can help us out, we're going to have Nuggets one night, Avs, Nuggets, Avs, and there's not going to be time. We lead busy lives here, and we're getting to playoff time. So I don't expect you to put the Rockies over Avs and Nuggets playoffs. But when we get into the dog days, when the Nuggets and the Avs are done, and we're waiting, it's that old saying, Rockies just get us to Broncos season. That's the saying around Colorado. Just get us there. This brand of baseball might be able to do that. Get us to Broncos season, and then we'll see you in March. But now the Rockies win. 719-247-1313. Coming up next. So why did Michael Malone decide to take the job at North Carolina as opposed to waiting one more NBA cycle to potentially get a job? I think we might have part of the answer, but maybe not all of it. That's next on KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. So the day after Michigan wins the national title, and the way they did it in a game that it just felt like at no point was UConn going to win that game. Everyone has kind of shifted back to Michael Malone. Like if last night was this epic, like the Duke UConn game, that would be the big story. But it was kind of like, yeah, Michigan, they won. They weren't dominant, but they were in control all night against UConn. I don't know if you want to talk about college sports, that there's a lot of meat on that bone, honestly. But the Michael Malone thing is fascinating. And we talked about it yesterday. This not really being on many people's radar, that Michael Malone would go to North Carolina. And his daughter being there is not as great of a dad as Michael Malone is. That's not going to be why. Okay, because if she was playing volleyball at, Prairie View A&M, I don't think Michael Malone's taking the head coaching job at Prairie View A&M. Okay, I think that is an added bonus that makes it even cooler that he's going to be there while his daughter is there as well. But that's not the motivation for him. Why UNC did this is really what I focused on yesterday, and it makes a ton of sense. They were determined to go outside the Carolina family because, one, that's not a good way of doing things. To just say, oh, we got to have a Carolina person. Because then you're hiring somebody who's not up for the job. And Doherty, maybe long-term Hubert Davis, were they really up for that job? Did they really have what it took? Roy Williams did, but Roy Williams, after he left Carolina, went on and did some great things, right? So the idea that we got to stay in the Carolina family, well, that's a little preposterous. What if nobody's qualified? And that's finally what Carolina came to realize. They looked around and they're like, there's no one from the Carolina family that we can sell to our fan base. There's no one ready for this job. And given the evolution of college sports that are more pro-like than ever before, bringing in somebody from the NBA makes a lot of sense. And now you're bringing in somebody who, like his now coworker, who has championship rings, plural. You have a guy with an NBA ring coaching your program. So with North Carolina, I'm having a really understanding. I don't think Michael Malone was their number one choice. Okay, because there was two. I mentioned Tommy Lloyd yesterday. The timing of his extension was not a coincidence. But also, let's not forget what happened with the Chicago Bulls. They got rid of their entire front office. Not Billy Donovan. So there are two things that happened that I think are not coincidences and are directly related to North Carolina looking for a head coach to placate or in order to keep Billy Donovan in Chicago and Tommy Lloyd in Tucson. So I don't think it was their number one choice, but I think it's a really good choice. I think it's an easy sell to the fan base, understanding that the employers of Tommy Lloyd and Billy Donovan did things to make sure that North Carolina couldn't have them. But the part I've been thinking about a little bit more since yesterday is, why did Michael Malone do this? We're on the precipice of the end of the season. Black Monday for the NBA is coming. Why didn't Michael Malone wait to see what jobs came open. Why did he jump now? He's not a Carolina guy. He coached, he was an assistant at Manhattan for like 2 seconds. He's an NBA guy. Why would he not only go to college, but go to college when we're right here at the end of the regular season and all these NBA jobs are going to come open? One, and it's the old saying, the answer is money. What's the question? This from ESPN. Sources say Michael Malone will be top 5 in coaching salary in college basketball. I think that's what got Michael Malone to go now. Is maybe an extra 0. But still, Michael Malone has done very well for himself and his family. Why would this NBA guy not try to see what's out there? I think there are a couple of reasons that I hinted at yesterday. One is, after the fiasco in Denver, for Michael Malone to be able to do things his way, I think that's appealing. It's a pro-light system in college basketball. But one of the things that is different from college basketball to the pros, you don't have an all-powerful general manager. General managers are usually foot soldiers for the head coach, or are just really good at fundraising, right? They're a face to put out there and it gets people excited, like Andrew Luck. And I'm sure Andrew Luck has some ideas about how to fix Stanford football. But I think the biggest thing he brings to the table is he can connect with Stanford fans who long for the years that Andrew Luck was there, or Christian McCaffrey. So for Michael Malone to be able to do this his way, it's not that different than Belichick, if we're being honest. Belichick got increasingly frustrated at the NFL level because he couldn't do it his way. And maybe it wasn't a GM necessarily. It was an owner in Robert Kraft. He had somebody above him in the pecking order that was telling him this is what we got to do, or at least pushing back against his ideas. I think that was part of the lure of it. And I think it's part of the lure of it for Michael Malone. I'm going to do things my way. But I think the other part, much like Belichick, but certainly not as drastic of an example as Bill Belichick is, I don't know how many of the jobs that come open are going to want Michael Malone because of that general manager role. Because if you're a general manager that's going to fire your head coach, okay, the next guy up on the chopping block once you hire your head coach is not your new head coach, it's you. So you're going to bring in a very opinionated head coach that you're going to at times butt heads with while you're on the hot seat, while you're next on the chopping block. I don't know that a lot of general managers want to do it. I saw Orlando thrown out there as a potential spot for Michael Malone, and I think it makes on paper it makes sense, but the person making the decision in Orlando, were they actually going to want Michael Malone to be the head coach? So I do think it's, and I don't know if it's 50-50, 51-49, 70-30, whatever it is, but I think it's some combination of Michael Malone not having a boss necessarily and being able to do things at North Carolina his way, And it's also because of what happened in Denver, I don't know if that stain has washed off of him to at least the point where he would take a job that he truly wanted. Right? Michael Malone's not going to start from scratch and say, give me another team like I got in Sacramento or I got in Denver and let me build them up. No, he's going to want to start on second or third base. So I think it's still a little surprising, if I'm being honest. Even today, I'm a little surprised that Michael Malone is the new head coach at North Carolina. But as I think through it, I think there's some legitimate reasons why he may want to take this job. Nikola Jokic last night was asked after the Nuggets win what he thinks of Michael Malone, the college coach.
Yes, I mean, good, yes, good. I'm happy for him. Probably a little bit different. Was he ever a coach in college? No.
He was an assistant before he was an NBA assistant.
Yeah, that's
good job, Vinny.
I'm happy for the coach. I wish him all the luck. So I think it's a little bit different just because he was coaching NBA for 12, 15 years. So, but he definitely have the how to say it, the poise and the brain to do it, and I think he's gonna do a really good job.
I think you will too. I think Michael Malone will have success. Now, here's the issue. If you're going to North Carolina, there is one definition of success. And are they going to be patient enough? That remains to be seen. But I think he is an upgrade over Hubert Davis. And I do think that he did a great job in Denver. Like, let's not call it anything other than what it is. He did a great job with this team. It ran its course. It ran its course in Denver, and there were outsized egos and personalities at play here, and he didn't handle that well, just like Calvin Booth didn't handle that well. And Josh Kroenke had some missteps along the way because he was too hands-off when all of this was going on. So there's a lot of fingers to be pointed. But a fresh start in a place where he is the unquestioned leader, there's no power struggle. The type of coach he is a brilliant coach. And one thing that you're missing today, if you're a Nuggets fan, is one of those Michael Malone post-game rants because he got his team to respond to those kind of things. David Adelman, I think that's something that's still missing in his coaching style. I think Michael Malone's going to do well. Is he going to reach the mountaintop? I think he has to be considered a success at North Carolina. More after this. Welcome in. Glad to have you. Appreciate you watching the show, which you can totally do on a daily basis. Anywhere you scroll at 740 KVOR, at Extra Sports 1300. While you are there, like, subscribe, follow, and most importantly, comment, because this is an interactive experience. Last night, there was another scare when it comes to an NBA superstar, as Victor Wembanyama left the Spurs game with a rib injury. Shams Charania just tweeting out moments ago that when it is not a serious injury to Victor Wembanyama, which is the most important thing, because Luka's injury does. If we're finding the part, what part of the spectrum Wemby is, his injury less serious than Luka's, and Spurs fans feeling much better than Laker fans are today. Now, here's one of the big conversations lately in the NBA. The Spurs have 3 games left, and Victor Wembanyama needs one more to meet the 65-game threshold to be eligible for MVP and All-NBA. Okay, we know Victor Wembanyama wants both. So the idea that the San Antonio Spurs are going to sit him out for 3 games, I just don't see it happening. When he needs one, you're going to sit him out all 3. He's going to get 0 and miss out on these awards, one of the awards he campaigned for. There's no way that's happening. But I think it's entirely possible that the San Antonio Spurs say 1 game. Victor Wembanyama, 1 night only. Which game do you choose? Because I would think that a good idea, out of abundance of caution, is not to put him right back out on the floor in the next game. Which is, Ray, did you see when the Spurs played next?
Tomorrow. The Blazers.
That, to me, feels like it's too soon to play Victor Wembanyama. Let him have a couple of days here. He has today, and then he'll have tomorrow. And then do they go Thursday, Friday back-to-back, or Saturday, Sunday back-to-back?
They don't have back-to-back. They go tomorrow, and then they go Friday, and then Sunday.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking later in the week. Okay. All right. So they don't. So you would. So you get hurt on Monday. I keep thinking today's Wednesday. So Tuesday you get Monday you get hurt. Tuesday you have off. Wednesday you take off again. Thursday there's 3 days now, and then you can play him Friday.
And another thing to note, I don't know, but what all the games are home games, so that helps. So he doesn't have to travel at all.
I think that is important. If there was a back-to-back situation, or if they were on the road, I think that would make the decision a little bit clearer. Why I'm bringing all of this up, because the story, as far as you're probably concerned, is whether Victor Wembanyama is going to meet the 65-game threshold, and I think that there is almost no chance that he doesn't. No chance. With everything that Victor Wembanyama has done this season, with his campaigning, he's going to play again this season. But the which game do you choose is important, because on Sunday, Spurs Nuggets to close out the regular season. So both from an entertainment standpoint, to get Wemby versus Jokic again, you probably hope that the Spurs pick that game. And there would be I don't know the science behind if he played the second to last game and had just a couple of extra days more than the rest of the Spurs to go into the playoffs. That makes some sense, but it also makes sense to sit him for the better part of a week, bring him back just so he gets his legs underneath him again against Denver, and then you go into the postseason. Although, and now I'm thinking about this too, we have this stupid play-in that we have to all sit through. So, like, there's so many so do you want to give Wemby even more time with having to sit through the play-in? Or do you want to take a little bit more time now, get him on the floor against Denver, you hit the 65 game threshold, you make sure that he's right and ready to go, and then you go into the, let's call it, play-in break. That's I think it's a super nerdy, but I think it's a really interesting question. And to me, my gut just says we need to get him out there one more time. We got a long break sitting in front of us, a whole week before we play again. I think it would be the last game of the season. Get Wemby out there. And I'm not even saying he's got to play. I don't think he should play a full 40-minute game. But to me, that feels like the right game to play him. Would be the last game of the season. I don't know how San Antonio is going to go. But to spin this towards the Nuggets, you probably want to see, as a Nuggets fan, Jokic versus Wemby again. But here's the practicality of the Nuggets going through for the 3 seed. So the Nuggets win last night against the Portland Trailblazers in a game that they made much harder than it needed to be. But they've now won 8 in a row, and they are now a half or a full game up on what, Ray?
9 in a row.
9 in a row. Oh, thank you. Sorry. I don't really count last night as a win because no style points. So they get 8 wins of style points and not this one. No. Okay. So 9. So right now, up to date NBA standings, the Nuggets are a full game up on LA, or they're a half a game. There must be a half a game.
Half a game.
So half a game because the Lakers didn't play last night.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure this out. So the Nuggets are 51-28. Lakers are 50-28. So is
the Nuggets are a half a game?
I don't understand.
Yeah, they're a half a game up. The easy thing to remember is just when a team plays and wins and the other team doesn't play, they only gain a half a game instead of a full game. So the Nuggets are a half a game up on LA right now for the 3rd seed, which the importance of that is, maybe Minnesota is the less appealing, or not, I shouldn't say less appealing. It's more appealing given their recent history. The matchup that you sweat less would be Houston, right? But right now they would play Minnesota round 1. I don't think that's as important as what round 2 brings. If they get the 3 seed, round 2 is San Antonio, and you get OKC in the Western Conference Finals. If you get the 4 seed, then you're going to be taking on the better first round matchup, but a more difficult second round matchup, with the possibility that you don't even go to the conference finals, let alone the NBA finals this year. So I think that I look past the first round and I say that I think you want San Antonio round 2 and you want to set up OKC in the Western Conference Finals. That's what I want. So, but that's what it would be. 3 seed would be Minnesota, San Antonio, OKC. That would be the path. 4 seed, Houston, OKC, and let's say San Antonio. Lakers play tonight against OKC without Austin Reeves, without Luka Doncic. Okay? My expectation is that the Nuggets will be a full game up. And then the Nuggets would play tomorrow night against Memphis. And they could pull a game and a half up. And basically, it's lining up. And then the Lakers play Golden State the day after, kind of like they're doing now. Nuggets play one night, Lakers play the next. They play at Golden State, again without Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic, with Steph Curry back for the Warriors. There's a chance that it would be a 2-game lead for Denver. Although last night, who knows, they might need triple overtime to beat Memphis. The Nuggets would be 2 games up on LA for the 3rd seed with 2 games to go. The Lakers, without Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic, mind you, home against Phoenix, home against Utah. The Nuggets have OKC and San Antonio. If Wemby plays Friday and they let him sit out on Sunday, all of a sudden the Nuggets magic number being 1, it feels better if you're a Nuggets fan, right? Because you would be taking on a San Antonio team without Victor Wembanyama to close out the season. So that's why it matters. When San Antonio decides to put Victor Wembanyama on the court to get his 65 games so he could potentially win the MVP, but definitely get All-NBA first team, directly impacts the chances of the Nuggets getting the 3 seed. Because on paper, the Lakers have the easier schedule. I think the losses of Reeves and Luka are too much to overcome. I think there is a game here of those two, Phoenix and Utah. They are going to lose. That's my feeling. And that's just as good. If the Nuggets take care of business tomorrow night and the Lakers lose tonight and Thursday, the Lakers can lose a game and the Nuggets could lose both, and the Nuggets would still end up with the 3 seed. But that's my feeling, is that the Lakers will drop one of these 2 games that people are like, oh, the Lakers are better than the Suns. Are you sure they're better than the Suns without Austin Reeves and Luka? But if the Lakers do take care of business, then the Nuggets need to win one of these 2 games. Friday against OKC at home, Sunday at San Antonio. So that's why when San Antonio decides to play, Victor matters. And what nobody wants, this is what you hope if you're a Nuggets fan, that it's Nuggets, Lakers lose tonight, Nuggets win tomorrow, Lakers lose on Thursday, and the Lakers lose to Phoenix on Friday. And then it's done. Yeah, OKC is still an important game if OKC puts out their full lineup, because Nuggets haven't beaten OKC yet. But as far as getting the 3rd seed and what I think is the better path for the Denver Nuggets, the job would already be done. So this thing coming down to the wire, and we will see. We'll see what the Spurs decide to do. And by the way, what side of this I fall on, I'd really like Wemby versus Jokic to end the season. Even if the Nuggets need that game to get the 3 seed, I would still like the Spurs to pick that game to play Wemby, because the game on Saturday was just, we got to see it again. And then I want to see it for 7 more games. So that's where I'm at. But if you're someone who's strictly like, they got to get the 3 seed, then maybe you'd rather Wemby play one more game on Friday. But the good news is, and this is good news, right? Let's try to break some of the negativity cycle surrounding the NBA right now. It is good news that one of their stars has not suffered a serious injury to put his playoff availability in doubt. And Victor Wembanyama is going to be eligible for the MVP and for All NBA as he deserves to be. Now, there is this nebulous exception thing that Luka's agent is pushing for. I don't know if to me, his season-ending injury, if your season just, and Cade Cunningham, I guess, is in the same boat. To me, that's just the breaks. It's tough. You hate it, and you understand that Luka and Cade are not load managed. Like they are legitimate injuries, but I just think you have to hold fast and firm if you're Adam Silver, because he's found out in his time as commissioner, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. So you have to me, stay resolute in the 65 game rule. So that's why it is good news, as unfortunate it is for Cade Cunningham and Luka. Although Luka has the birth of his child, I think maybe that should be allowed. And if NBA players are going to have babies in order to allow themselves some time off, then you know what? That you cross that bridge when you come to it. It's good news that Wemby is healthy enough that he's going to be on the court one of these last 3 games. And we're not going to have like an MVP by default. We can have a real MVP conversation that I think Wemby should win. I don't think that he will, but at least he will be eligible for that. 719-247-1313 elsewhere in the NBA, because we can't get away from the negativity cycle. I mean, come on. We do thrive on negative stories. I'll just tell you this. When I brought up the other day that LeBron on the Nuggets made sense, and the reasons why most of you said you didn't want LeBron, you need to take those opinions and apply them to the guy in Milwaukee. Because who you say LeBron is, that's who Giannis is now. The latest with the embattled Bucks superstar next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Shams Charania put out a piece today on the saga with Giannis Antetokounmpo in Milwaukee. And if you have not been apprised of what's going on, allow me to do so. You probably know that that relationship is quite strained. Well, now they are in a fight because Milwaukee wants to shut him down for the rest of the season and Giannis wants to play. So it doesn't seem like Giannis is getting his way. So either Giannis or his agent went and spilled the beans to Shams to then put out, I'm not going to call it a hit piece, but a piece that is very slanted in favor of Giannis Antetokounmpo. And it's a lot of stuff about how, the Bucks aren't doing right by him and they were getting ready to trade him, which is doing right by him. And then John Horst, the general manager of the Bucks, kind of ghosted some teams that thought they were on the verge of landing Giannis Antetokounmpo. And now they're trying to, load manage him and not play him the rest of the season, despite Giannis wanting to play. And it's a very, you can tell where the information comes from. You just can. And look, I appreciate the inside information. I appreciate what Shams and Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter, we love all of their stuff. But sometimes stuff comes out that you're like, I know where you're getting this from. And Shams is not reporting on the Bucks side of things. He's putting out a story that is basically from the perspective of Giannis and his camp. And I just think the pendulum has swung the other way to where I am Team Bucks. I am not Team Giannis in this. Because Giannis tiptoed around this thing. He's probably wanted out from Milwaukee for 3 years now. And he doesn't want to be the bad guy. But meanwhile, behind the scenes, he's either intimating to the Bucks that they better improve or he's going to be gone or demand for a trade, or he's specifically saying that to him. So they have to do all these crazy things like land Damian Lillard, which I thought was a good move at the time. It was health that made that thing kind of fall apart. But then they had to waive and stretch Dame so they could be able to open up enough space to bring in Miles Turner. And like they're doing all of this stuff to clearly placate Giannis, either because they're worried about losing him or he's demanding that they, behind the scenes, that they make moves. That organization has bent over backwards to try and put together a competitive basketball team to keep Giannis. They have done their part. Meanwhile, Giannis this season has played 36 games. So you tell me who's holding up their end of the bargain. And what is Giannis's reasoning, by the way, to want to play? To be there for his teammates? Yes, as long as his teammates' last names are Antetokounmpo. Giannis wants to come back in a completely lost season. That it would be in the Bucks' best interest for him not to play. He's been hurt all season. The season's been lost. It would be wise for the Bucks to not play him. Start fresh next year. And what Giannis should want is what's in the best interest of the Bucks as well, if they are aligned. Giannis wants to play not to save the season. He wants to be able to play with his brothers. So that's why I said before the break, you talk about LeBron and nepotism, and I'm not saying it's an unfair charge to levy against him. Giannis has got both of his brothers who aren't deserving of NBA roster spots on his team. So we talk about LeBron forcing the hand of the Cavs or the Heat or not. He didn't really do it with the Heat. He got the guys he wanted with Bosh and Wade, obviously. But in Cleveland and in LA, LeBron holding a team over a barrel. You got to get this guy. You got to get that guy. I'm not happy with the moves you made. And now I need you, or I'm not going to say it out loud, but you know me well enough to know you better draft my son. All of that stuff that LeBron got criticized for, Giannis has been doing it too. And it's been twice as bad because he's got two brothers that are not deserving of NBA roster spots. And that's the only motivation for Giannis to play. That's a selfish reason. Giannis wants to play with his brothers, and he probably knows he's going to be traded this offseason. And he's fine. The Bucks are, for once, looking out for themselves and saying, hey, we got to keep you healthy so we could trade you, which is what you want, Giannis. But we also got to protect our assets. We can't put you out there and win games. Yes, the Bucks are tanking. But they're doing right by themselves. So they can say, look, we got Giannis. He is healthy. He hasn't been playing. Trade for him and give us everything you got. Picks, young players, give us it all because Giannis is bubble wrapped and ready to be delivered to your city. But no, Giannis wants to risk that so he could play with his brothers. And look, playing with your brother, it's the same thing with LeBron. Like, I understand why LeBron wants to play with his son. And it was a very cool moment. But it is nepotism. I understand why Giannis wants to play with his brothers. But his brothers are only on the team because their last name is Antetokounmpo. And wanting to play with your brothers should not supersede what is in the best interest of the franchise if you are committed to the franchise that you play for, as Giannis will take every opportunity to tell you he is, so you don't get mad at him. Now, I've said this, like, say what you will about Anthony Davis, at least the guy was direct. The guy said, I want out, and he sat out, and he's like, I'm going to LA, and he was very direct. He didn't try to say, New Orleans, I love you, and I want to stay, but if it's in the best interest of the organization, I guess I will go. Like, Giannis and his team have handled this so poorly that he has actually turned into something that is worse than the superstars who have demanded out. Because he won't just say, I want out. And by the way, there's a part in the piece by Shams where Giannis this summer went to the Bucks and supposedly told them, the only team I'd like you to trade me to is the Knicks. And this is where I say, this organization has done everything that Giannis has wanted. They've loaded up with significant move after significant move. They built a champion. Then they tried to rebuild. They swung for the fences with Damian Lillard. It didn't work. They ate his contract so they could afford Miles Turner to try and be competitive. They've done all this stuff. They've allowed themselves to be the bad guy that Giannis paints them out to be. And then finally, the Bucks are a little bit more amenable to moving on from Giannis, and Giannis goes to him and, like, trade me to the Knicks. Oh, you mean the New York team with no young players and no draft picks for the next 20 years? Like, come on, what kind of choice is that? If you really want out and you're Giannis, either you pick, if you're going to pick one team, you better pick a team that has some assets, because then you're just being difficult. There is nothing that the Bucks should want from the Knicks. And nothing the Knicks can offer that would even be close to enough value for Giannis Antetokounmpo. They made their bed with the Mikal Bridges trade. Now they need to lie in it. They don't get Giannis for nothing. And I don't blame the Bucks for feeling that way. But if you're Giannis, you better pick a team like at least Anthony Davis. The Lakers had a lot of assets. Or you give a list of teams. It's not just the Knicks. I would also take a trade to Miami. It'd be cool to play in Golden State. I'd like to go to Dallas. I don't know. You give some choices. Or else you have to understand that the organization is going to kind of hold firm and say, yeah, we may not trade you if you give us one team that is devoid of assets. And yet the Bucks are the bad guys. Giannis is basically, and look, he delivered them a title. He was the best player in the world for a stretch there. I'm not saying that the Bucks should be ungrateful. I'm just saying the scales have tipped the other direction, that the Bucks have done more than their fair share. Now it's time for Giannis to one last time or one first time understand where the Bucks are coming from. Because if he truly forces this thing through and the Bucks acquiesce to his request and traded him to New York, it would set their franchise back for a decade. The Bucks have to protect their lives without Giannis as much as they can. I think Giannis has been unreasonable. I think he has been selfish. And I am on Team Bucks. You do what's right by you. Now, they're going to trade him. So in the end, Giannis is going to get what he wants. Or he won't admit that he wants it, but he wants to be traded. They will give him what he wants. But they're going to do it on their terms, on their timeline, and they're going to get something back in return. So Bucks fans have a reason to believe that the Bucks post Giannis can be decent in the next generation of Bucks fans. I just think the fall of Giannis from one of the most likable players in the NBA it's been a precipitous drop. And to me, he's one of the most unlikable. And I suppose I have a little bit of sensitivity to all of this because I, like you, went through the Melo stuff. I don't particularly like stars that hold their organization hostage. And what would have been the result with Carmelo if James Dolan had not pulled a James Dolan and said, give the Nuggets everything they want for Carmelo now. But wait, we can just sign him for free and that now trade now. Thank God for James Dolan. Nuggets would have been in the same situation. So I don't like that, but I also don't like somebody that wants to have their cake and eat it too. Giannis wants out of Milwaukee, but he doesn't want to be the bad guy. Sorry, you can't have both. You want out of a city, you're the bad guy. Now, eventually, it will pass. This too shall pass. Giannis will get a statue and he'll get a jersey retirement and he'll be beloved by the Milwaukee Bucks fan base. But you're going to have to deal with it for a little while. But no, you want to be traded and you want to play with your brothers and you want to be the good guy. No. You don't get all of that, Giannis. Sorry. 719-24-7. 1313. Coming up next, we've talked a lot about the Nuggets and their playoff positioning, and we will coming up next. But I also want to get into the Avs a little bit. I know no one is sweating who the Avs will play in the first round, But do you have a preference? Because a new team is now in that final playoff spot and would play the Avs if the season ended tomorrow. I'll see what you think about them. Coming up next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports. Now, I am cognizant that, we're on a station now that for most of the day is news. Not necessarily sports news, but given just where we are, I want to mention that President Trump has announced on Truth Social that there will be a 2-week ceasefire. And that I just want to, we want to be timely. That's kind of part of the reason why I'm on the air is we want timely talk programming on KVOR. So if you are listening on KVOR, I know Extra, you're not necessarily here for that. But if you want more this evening on President Trump announcing a 2-week ceasefire with Iran, Mark Levin follows me at 6 o'clock on KVOR, and you will have talk programming all through the evening on this story. So I want to share that and then move back to sports, which is the main thing with this show. So text came in that I think, and Ray left me. So maybe I'll wait for Ray to get back in here because this was partly his deal. But let me start with this. So we haven't spent a lot of time talking about who the Avalanche are going to match up with in the first round of the playoffs, because with all due respect to any team that could potentially take over that last spot, I will direct your attention to what Daryl Suter said back in 2022, where he called a series against the Avalanche a, quote, waste of 8 days. It would be one of the more significant upsets in recent NHL history if the team that ends up being the 8th seed beats the Colorado Avalanche in the first round. It just would be. Okay? If you're an Avs fan, I'm sorry I put it out in the universe, but that's just, it would be. So we haven't spent a lot of time on it because I don't know if there's a matchup that you go, ooh, this is a little worrisome. But that doesn't mean that there aren't more ideal matchups. Or one matchup is not more ideal than another. And I think there's two ways I think that the first round can benefit the Colorado Avalanche. Because I don't even know if just like sweeping a team in 4 games and blowing them out in every game is the ideal. I mean, it would be fun. And certainly, given that we expect the Minnesota-Dallas series to be, a war of attrition for 7 games, the earlier the Avs can get through the first round, the better. I mean, I think there's that. But can the team that they play offer a little resistance or be a good introduction into postseason hockey? I think it could. And here are two potential matchups that I think accomplish that goal. I wouldn't take either of these teams over the Avs. One would be Winnipeg. Like we've seen those two teams go back and forth over the past couple of weeks. Winnipeg can certainly give the Avalanche some problems, and they have Connor Hellebuck. I know playoff Hellebuck is a different thing, but now we're going to see potentially the merging of playoff Hellebuck and Olympic Hellebuck. And I'm kind of fascinated to see that. And that the only place that could be in is in a first round with the Avalanche. But if Connor Hellebuck uses these playoffs as a way to maybe further shrug off his reputation, as he did when he was the best player on the ice when the U.S. needed it the most, I think that could provide the Avs a little bit of resistance here and be a little bit better introduction into the postseason and not be a waste of 8 days. And another one I think would actually be LA, who currently holds the last playoff spot. Because the way that the Los Angeles Kings play, I think gives the Avs a chance to prepare for what playoff hockey is. It's not wide open. You got to scratch and claw for that time and space. It is not just given to you. And LA, and they have a lot of deficiencies. Certainly, they're not, again, not a team that will knock off the Avalanche, but their style of play, they do a decent job of taking away time and space. They clog the neutral zone, and I think that could be a good first-round matchup for the Avs to just try and figure their way around with less time and space. And then with Artemi Panarin now with the LA Kings, and he's been brilliant for them, by the way. You have a star player that you got to kind of figure out what you're going to do against him, like you will see if it is Dallas with Mikko Rantanen, or as you move through the playoffs, there will be other star players you will have to go up against. So I haven't spent a lot of time on these potential matchups. I don't think I need to, because the Avs are going to win, and we'll certainly talk about it ad nauseum when the playoffs finally roll around. But the team that currently holds that last playoff spot and even if they flip-flop with Utah, I think Utah could be a good one. So there are some potential matchups out there that would be a nice, to be able to crescendo through the postseason. Right? Get a little resistance in round one, be a little bit more ready to go, because if the Avs sweep away their opponent, we're going to have the rest versus rust. Are the Avs really playoff locked in, or did they just get a really easy team, especially with the way that the Avs are playing a little inconsistent right now, and they will face the Blues again tonight. So a chance to make up for that performance on Sunday. You can hear the game on Extra Sports 1300, by the way. I think it would be good for the Avs to have a little bit of pushback. I think LA can provide that. I think Utah can with the familiarity, and then Winnipeg with their goaltending, but also with their familiarity as well with the Colorado Avalanche. Don't expect the Avalanche to get bounced in the first round, but they're a better matchup. I think Nashville, I think they would just sweep right through Nashville. And I don't even know how good some of these games would be, if I'm being honest. And maybe that's all it is, entertainment value. Want to see Artemi Panarin for a few games? You want to see Connor Hellebuck? You want to see the young duo of Gunther and Keller on Utah? That's also part of it too. So we'll see Avs and Blues tonight. And the Blues aren't completely out of things either, especially after they beat the Avs the other night. So there's that as well. The text that came in, and what I needed Ray's help with, was the text that I got saying, I think the Rockets still have a shot for the number 3 seed based on schedules left between the Nuggets and the Rockets. Real quickly, Ray, who is left for Houston?
Suns tonight. 76ers Thursday, and the Timberwolves Friday, and the Grizzlies on Sunday.
I think that does look to be easier, or sound.
I say
to
3
be
and
easier.
1.
Yeah, 3-1, but the Nuggets are a game and a half up.
Right. And they have tiebreaker, right?
So the Nuggets would need to lose. The Nuggets would, just doing the math, probably not correctly, but they'd have to almost lose out.
Mm-hmm.
And they have Memphis tomorrow. And the potential of either no Wemby for San Antonio in the season finale, or OKC sitting guys on Friday.
Right.
Yes, but also I don't expect that to happen. I don't expect the Houston Rockets to leapfrog the Denver Nuggets. But you were throwing out an interesting scenario in which, I mean, if the Lakers keep falling, they can't fall any lower than 5th.
5.
But if that scenario that the texter had, where the Rockets jump Denver and get the 3 seed, it would be Lakers Nuggets in the first round.
Right. Not without Wemby.
Without Luka.
Yeah. And without Austin Reeves, because they're predicted to come early second round. So is that a matter? But then you go back to your point. Okay, yeah, that's a nice first round. But then the second round, you're 95% chance you're getting OKC.
Yeah. Still not ideal. But Lakers would be interesting. I
feel like the Lakers would be not easier, but less of a challenge than.
Well, let me ask. We got 20 seconds.
Go.
Would you rather play the Rockets or the Lakers without Luka and Reeves?
That's a hard one. I would say
you would rather play the Lakers.
The Lakers.
Come on,
Lakers.
Without Reeves and Luka,
yeah,
you'd rather play the Lakers. All right. Coming up next. Speaking of the Nuggets, are they the team no one wants to play?